The Music Machine was released for the Atari 2600 in 1983. And when I say released, I mean it was released in a very limited capacity. It was developed by a company called Christian Software Development, and apparently it was only made available in religious bookstores, leading it to become one of the rarest games on the console. You play as a pair of kids, Steve and Nancy, who in tandem carry a huge basket around, catching items that are dropped by the music machine. The music machine itself, according to the manual, plays music based on whatever Steve and Nancy put into it. So if they're catching this shit, I'm guessing that the kids already packed the machine with all this crap. It played the song, and when it's done, it spits it all out, and you have to catch it all before it breaks. If that's true, then that's a pretty flawed design for a machine. These items range from shit like music notes, snails, and mustard seeds. I know that's extremely random, but the way the manual explains it is that each item represents some kind of positive trait or theme that you should live by. Now we're starting to see why this was made by a religious company. So for example, the snails represent patience, the lamb represents gentleness, and the hearts represent love, which the manual defines love as wanting the best to happen to someone else so much that you're willing to make it happen. Okay. When you take time to encourage someone or chip in to help them get a job done, and you are genuinely happy when they get all the credit or praise, that's love. I mean, those are nice gestures, but that is not at all how I define love. Anyway, there are other entries in here for each of the items, some of which, as you might expect, have religious overtones. Either way, the object of the game is to catch all these items using the paddle controller to maneuver the kids. So it's borrowing heavily from Kaboom, arguably one of the best games on the system. But these blatant rip-off games always suck, right? Well, not exactly. Don't get me wrong, this is not a very good game, and it's certainly not innovative by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't do a bad job in at least mimicking the fun factor aspect of the game that it's trying to emulate. In fact, it actually adds something to the mix where these goofy-looking fucks called Pudgeons are trying to break your basket at the orders of this stock villain named Mr. Pins. So you actually want to avoid these cretins while collecting all the other items, or you'll lose a life if you make contact with them. Now that I think of it, it actually is reminiscent of fast food, where there's one item that does harm you and you want to catch everything else. Only this time the items are coming in vertically as opposed to horizontally. Another way that it's similar to fast food, and unlike Kaboom, is you don't have to catch all the items before they hit the edge of the screen. You just get points for collecting them, which can lead to extra lives, and you lose points when they hit the ground. The hearts I mentioned earlier are the most important item to collect, because unlike all the others, you have to catch this one, or you'll lose a life, plus it shifts horizontally as it falls. So there are some dynamics that separate this game from Kaboom, but at the end of the day, it's nowhere near as fun. The intensity level of having to catch everything in Kaboom isn't there when you can dilly-dally a little bit. The controls are actually quite fluid, but the animation of the falling objects are choppy as hell. As much as the game picks up the pace and the intensity increases, this choppy animation really starts becoming an eyesore as the game progresses, especially since you have to keep your eyes peeled specifically for the Pudgeons. Like I said, it wasn't a contender for the most original game of the year back in 1983, and it's not nearly as fun as the game that it wants to be, but it does lure you to try again to beat your next score. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's addicting, but you might not want to put it down right away either. And it also holds a distinction of being one of the rarest games on the 2600, so if you're a collector, keep an eye out for it. Just be ready to pull some of your kids' college fund.